morning, friends. Welcome to my channel. This violin lesson will be on Kreutzer Etude number 7, the first half of it. And as I've spoken of on previous Kreutzer Etudes, I have to protect my shoulder. It's a little bit sensitive. I got some soreness in there. So I'm not going to be doing the bowing as aggressively as I think it, probably should be. They suggest, heavy accents like with really strong articulation on each one. You'll find on my playing that I'm playing lighter. The key for whichever way you do the stroke, heavier stroke, I think it's good to practice it both ways, lighter and heavier. The bottom note needs a little more emphasis. Even when I'm playing lightly, what I consider lightly, I'm putting more emphasis on the bottom note to make the jump from the bottom back to the top easier. Otherwise it gets, especially later on in the excerpt when we have these really wild things, where you got to go across 4 strings from the upper to lower, upper, lower, and you'll notice I'm using lots and lots of elbow arm action. I suppose theoretically, if you practiced it and you were just doing a flip, you might be able to do it. I've seen players with lower right elbows, but my elbow action being and in this range for tonal properties, I tend to keep the same technique. So as we're going through this, the major difficulty is obviously the bowing, but there's also lots of difficulties in the left hand, and I highly recommend the way to practice this is to practice it slowly so you get used to these intervals. I mean, the intervals are just, beyond thought. As I was recording it, I was thinking, what am I thinking here? I mean, it's just sort of like this. I'm aware, for example, that's pretty easy, but then the next, the A octave, it's a half step across strings from the F sharp. Now whole step, half step, half step. So you see, and all these things, there's no time to think about all this stuff. You just have to instinctively feel this. That one, you got to reach a little higher. Notice I'm holding fingers down, really important. Holding the second finger down, then pick them both up. All right, so that's basic fundamental. And if you have any questions about how to hold fingers down or why I wouldn't think you would at this level of a technical exercise like this, but I have videos on finger walking, and you can always check those out at the beginning, in the beginner videos that I put up recently. So looking through here, this is, just repetitive. The first, and I'm using the Peters edition, and I'm looking at measure, for example, starting measure 19. It starts getting interesting. Challenge. And I noticed putting my body starting because of all this energy. So you're jumping between the A and the G string. Oh, that's nothing, but when we get to the E string, we got to put out extra energy to keep it clean. And then over to the E string. I find this one was more difficult for me because my open D string is very stiff. I'm using obligato strings, which I don't like very much, but I'm using them just to try to give them, they're a couple of weeks old. They're both spongy and they're stiff. I can't get a good sound. That's a nice sound, but the string doesn't move enough. So anyhow, when I come to this passage in 21, I find it's hard to get that D string to move so I'm comfortable, but it sounds okay. That's it. This is a real challenging one. I made it, but boy. So what am I doing? I'm actually rolling bow. I'm not taking the bow off the string. Not taking the bow off the string, they're rolling it. And, you know, you could say, well, strings are pretty good because if these strings moved more, I might get a bunch of noise across it. So this is a, a toss-up, right? You get, this is a good thing. And then there's other passages, like right now I'm working on recording a teaching video on the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, and I hope you'll check that out. But some passages are extremely difficult on the Mendelssohn, more than I've ever found before. These strings, they just don't move right. So you'll see when you go over to the Mendelssohn. I'll probably complain about it a little there too. So anyhow, on this first section of this Kreutzer Etude, I'm playing it roughly at 1/16 for quarter. You can play faster, you can play slower. You know, obviously, you know, every violin and every bow. I'm also using my lightest bow to try to make this job easier. I have a series of bows, not great quality bows. This is a Nürnberger bow. Um, it's okay. It's an old, but it's light, 58 grams. I also have another Nürnberger, which is a little better bow, but it's a broken bow. It's been repaired, and that's a 62-gram bow, and that one draws a better sound, but it's more difficult for this kind of thing. So whatever equipment you have available to you, you know, find the best you can. And you know, I'm playing a nice 1915 Degani violin here. Um, Believe it, the reason why the great players can play Guarneri del Gesù and Stradivari, not because they're great players, but because those are great instruments. They can do more. They have more colors. They have more response. So, you know, be nice to yourself. Don't say I'm going to play like the greatest players with their, you know, Joshua Bell with his great instruments, whatever. Do the best you can. You know, it's like with me. I can only do what I can do based on this violin. It's a good violin, but it's, you know, so be gentle to yourself. Try to make it as easy as possible, like me, using a light bow on this kind of a technical exercise. And notice another thing that's very interesting, I think, about this piece. One little side note is that you've got the first half starting up bow. The second half, which I'm going to be talking about very shortly, starts down bow. So we've got opposite energy from our arm. So enjoy practicing this piece. Do the best you can with it, and we will see you on part 2 of this Etude number 7. Take care.